Does that mean we're ready or are we there? Oh, yeah, we're here. We're good to go. T-Roy. Welcome to the Goon Ironhead show. Sans Ironhead. I had big Troy Allen with me today.
Although my head is iron.
This is true. Very true. So we're setting the record for the largest duo of sports announcers in the history of sports. So it's pretty much like having Shaq and Barkley together. I mean, they all probably that equal up to me and you, T-Roy. So good afternoon. Welcome to the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. We're live at the Quaker Steak and Lube. One of the absolutely might be the best day of the year so far, T-Roy.
Until tomorrow.
Is it supposed to be nicer tomorrow?
I think it's supposed to be hotter tomorrow.
I know we're getting in close to that April 15th date, and it's about the 10. Tomorrow is the 10-day window of seeing, but the weather leading up to the next weekend blue-white game. So far, looks okay. I mean, I don't know how many people are like, well, we're sort of a borderline. We don't know if we're coming up or not for the game with the weather, but an absolutely beautiful day here, and as Ironhead would call it, the Valley of Happiness.
Last year started out iffy on the weather, did it not?
It started out pretty nice in the weather, right? Last year?
I thought it was reversed. Started out cold, and then it got hot.
Oh.
That's how you ended up with my sweatshirt. Yes, I know I'm right. It's okay.
Your girlfriend, your now fiance, left that at my home post-show, post-game, post-scrimmage, a.k.a. practice.
Yes, scripted scrimmage.
Have they come out? Do you know if they've come out with anything about the blue-white game, if they're going to do an actual game or a scrimmage? I know that there was talk about that he did not want to do the same program he did last year because, honest to God, I think one of the reasons why he had to do that type of practice was because of weather was so bad up here last year that they didn't have time to go outside and practice those kicks and punting. And you can't really, I mean, Haluba's a big place, but you can't really do live punting in there, in my opinion.
Right.
So
I think there was also a ton of injuries last year.
Yeah, I think he's trying to avoid that injury bug. And it is crazy. You know, I mean, I know you didn't play football at the level, but, you know, baseball players love the game so much. They do. I mean, football players love the game, but it's just like, my God, spring ball was the absolute most horrible thing to a football player. I mean, the worst. I mean, I would do Joe, and then even James still has him. He has 5:30 a.m. workouts in Lube Hall twice a week. And I think that, you know, James might have 3 of them a week now. But I know we had 2 of them for the whole, you know, from what, 2 weeks into this semester until spring practice started. You were going lifting 3 days, and then 2 days in the morning. It's 5:30 in the morning in Haluba. So the smell of Haluba Hall at 5:30 in the morning would make any ex-Penn football player. But you know what? The more I think about it, the baseball players are in there a ton. They have to hate it in there.
Well, if they can get it, like if baseball sometimes practices at 4 in the morning or 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes they have to go out to the center because in the winter, every team needs to use every spring sport needs to use Haluba in some way. So, and that's in the winter when football has it for their conditioning. So they're from 5 to 7 a.m. is already booked there 2 or 3 days a week. So there's a lot. But then you have intramurals that go in there. You have all the other sports, softball, baseball. I mean, yeah, you could see where we can sit there and, I mean, Haluba Hall is enormous and it's huge and it's beautiful and this and that, you know, but I mean, there should be each sport should have. I mean, you think that baseball should have their own individual indoor arena? I do. Look at Nebraska. They have Haluba for football, and then they have an additional one that size, and then baseball and softball has one. I think that's like 30,000 square feet.
Now they wouldn't have lacrosse out there, but we would. You know, lacrosse. Do they use Haluba? They would just share it with football probably, and let baseball and softball use the indoor baseball facility. Do you know has that been talked about in any of the upcoming? I know that they're going to start trying to do renovations in waves.
Yeah, they're not in the way that every other Big Ten school has a separate facility for baseball, and that, as far as I understand it, that will not be the case. They are expanding the batting cages and redoing the locker room, stuff like that.
So that's going to be at
Medler.
Okay.
You know, an indoor training facility specifically for baseball and softball, I have not heard that.
Now you're talking about just a pure baseball field inside, correct? Or just it'll
be like a the floor part of it would be enough to do a full infield
practice. Like,
yep, and then there'll be drop down or retractable cages of some sort, and then it'll be netted. So
what size are you talking? Half of Haluba?
Yeah, probably. You figure base path is 90 feet, so you figure it's got
a little less with the bigger bases now, Troy.
This is true. You figure they got to be like 120 by 120. Those at least the one I'm visualizing for Nebraska is like 120 by 120, probably a little bit bigger.
Are they taking BP in there, or just in the cages?
They're playing live in there.
In the netting?
Yep, because the ceiling will be netted. So it won't.
How are you? How do you simulate a game in there? Honestly, do you have somebody?
You get a full the outfielders aren't necessarily getting work, but you can get a full infield in and do your scrimmages that way. So you split up your team.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Now, I was asking in the netting, just in the 100 by 12 foot.
Yeah, and I mean it's probably it's.
Can you simulate a game in there, or just like the pitch count and stuff like that?
No, you simulate a game. It's as high as Lube.
No, what I'm saying that the whole thing just came. I was just talking just the netting.
No, you're netting the ceiling too.
Gotcha.
So you put the lights are reset in between the columns, and then you net the whole thing. So the balls aren't hitting the net. So you run a full scrimmage in there.
I always thought that was the hardest part about baseball was playing outfield. I mean, you'll find this story funny that when I was Division III coaching, we had in camp, you try to keep the monotony down a little bit. So we would put an offensive or defensive lineman out, usually the biggest, fattest, most unathletic kid, 50 yards out in the field and tell the punter to come up and say, hey, punt him a football. And if he catches it, there's no conditioning. And there's nothing funnier in the world than watching offensive and defensive linemen who think that they can be super athletic, because we all know this.
Right.
But I remember I did it one time, and I could not believe I was like running in, and I was like, oh, crap. And I literally went over 30 feet over my head. I mean, that has to be one of the hardest things to do. I mean, you got to read the ball off the bat as an outfielder. Do they take those guys outside in like in the tougher days?
But Penn State, for example, is doing it in Haluba, so they're actually getting the work. It's hard for an outfielder. It's hard to replicate. Seeing the ball off the bat if you're not outdoors.
Yeah.
And then even within that, each facility has different sight lines. Like I remember, I was a pretty decent outfielder. I remember playing in Jacobs Field my junior year, and when you play in college, you don't have deep backgrounds. And the stadiums are decent, but they're not, full major league stadiums. Yeah. And so when we were taking batting practice, I was missing balls by a ton because the depth perception in a major league stadium, an empty major league stadium, really throws you off. It's sort of like in basketball.
I'm just going to say that
if you play in a place like high school specifically,
correct.
I was thinking about, because the background
fans are right on top of you,
and the distance between the backboard and the wall is not very great. And we would shoot the lights out and then go to the state tournament at U-Hall in Charlottesville, where, the background, the walls of the Coliseum were so far behind, and your shooting was just wretched because the depth perception is different. So it's the same with baseball.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, because I was asked to do some celebrity thing a couple of years ago when the Harlem Globetrotters were in town, and I remember going over there. I think that Ironhead was with me, and I think that a couple other people in town, like, TV and radio people who they asked to come out there and like try to do some like crazy shots and this and that. And you don't have any idea how hard it is. And you're sitting there at Bryce Jordan Center on a free throw line, and you're looking back, and there's 900 feet until you see the seats. There's no depth, and that's exactly what you're talking about. It is unbelievable.
Yep.
And that's why every time I see a guy who hits a three from the deep corner, like, you have no backboard, there's no sight lines. You were literally just in tune with that hoop.
Yeah.
And it's impressive.
Repetition. I mean,
my Lord.
Eventually becomes muscle memory, but
yeah, but it's still tough.
Different.
And every rim is different in this world.
Yep.
I mean, people still don't talk about that. Like, one of the first things I noticed about this tournament, we'll start talking about it here in a tournament in a minute here, but do you see how orange that ball was? It looked like one of those slippery ones you used in high school that's like always like
brand
you
new.
can't get a grip of it and stuff like that. And the gym teacher's like, well, it's first week, you know?
Yeah.
And then by the end of the semester, it's brown because it's been beat up so much, but it's grippy.
Yep.
It's got a great handle to it and stuff like that. But I'm watching those NCAA basketball games, I'm seeing how orange that basketball is, and I'm like, that has to be slippery. And seeing what these dudes do, and, you know, in all intents and purposes, watching the women's Final Four, my God, that was amazing.
Yes, well.
What I watched this past weekend, what those women were doing, what those guys were doing, and it's just amazing. You're a baseball guy. I'm a football guy. Who are our country's best athletes, sport-wise?
Best athletes? It's hard for me not to say football.
Ooh.
But I think basketball players probably fall in there.
It's easier for me to say football because I've seen guys who can run 4.2 40s and not be able to run right to left.
Correct. And then there's also guys that don't have hands.
Yep. They're playing cornerback and safety for a reason because they stunk at wide receiver.
Yeah, so I think as a whole,
sheer size-wise, the athleticism of basketball players is just off the charts. Now, there's something to be said about football players in the head.
Yeah.
Like Charles Barkley said, he lasted one day, did one Oklahoma drill, and you think your brother said that this drill's been making great offense and defense or great basketball players for 100 years.
Yeah.
But that is that God's honest truth, though. I mean, we definitely have there's football players that screw looses. Now, there are some unbelievable athletes. I was with OJ down in Tulsa for OJ McDuffie for the wrestling a couple weeks ago when we were talking. He was like, oh my God, dude, I never thought about that. And I was talking about the sheer athleticism of our team when we got there in 1991. I think I added up, it was like 29 guys went to the NFL from just that offensive room.
You and I did that, yeah.
And then I talked to him about it, and then I was like, I'm telling you right now, we had at least 8 hoopers on that football program that actually literally could have played on the basketball team. Yep. And by the time I was done, I guess there was 2 guys who were jumping back and forth between – oh, man, I forget their names. Well, but there was guys playing hoops and basketball here.
I'll say this about baseball. Hitting in baseball is the hardest thing in sports.
Absolutely.
But
hitting a home run has to be the hardest thing to do in sports.
Correct. But athletically, I don't think it's even close to basketball or football.
No. I can agree with that. Now, basketball is amazing what they do. But they're physically, they would not last. I mean, the muscles used are different. I mean, you look at basketball players' ankles, they're real thin. And then the football players, obviously, much thicker because of what they have to do and the pressure and this and that. But Barry Bonds can take as many steroids as he wants, and anybody can shoot up all the gels and dyes into him all you want. He still had to put the bat on the ball.
He did. And he did it well before all that.
Absolutely.
You know, he's one I'm always torn on because I think he was a Hall of Famer before he got.
Absolutely, he was a Hall of Famer. He had what, 2 or 3 MVPs, I think.
Yeah, but there are players like there was an outfielder for Baltimore who hit 52 home runs
Brady
one year.
Anderson.
I didn't want to name names, but
no, that's okay.
Because he's apparently clean, but. You know, that's a situation where, no, you don't get to go in the Hall of Fame. But in his particular case, and I don't feel that way about McGuire, Sosa, Palmeiro, in Bonds' particular case, I think he deserves to be in because he had a Hall of Fame career before all that stuff happened.
You think McGuire, Sosa, I mean, you got to say that Clemens is a Hall of Famer for sure without the juice.
I struggle with that one too.
Really?
Because
this is interesting.
I don't know when the juice started.
See, I was always under the impression, and you're probably going to help me out here because you lived it. And somebody said, I don't know who it was. It may have been me, actually. I may have been drunk one night or high, and came up with all these great synopsises. So I would always say that I think that more pitchers were on the juice than they were hitters.
No.
Really?
No.
Like, you don't think that? Okay, I'm
Not
going
when I played.
to give you one name,
Sure.
and he rivaled Roger Clemens, I guess you'd say, and just he's a power pitcher, and that was Curt Schilling. Now, I think that he has shut his mouth so much. He talks about everything else. He does not shut up about anything else, and I can't stand a man for that. But he does not talk about pitchers and steroids.
So Schilling, my issue with Schilling is
we all know he's a jag-off.
Well,
so, yeah.
I'm talking about baseball specifically. When he spoke out against steroids in the game originally, he said 70% of players were on it, and then he backed off it. And I was pissed because that was the number.
Ooh.
And I don't know who got to him to say, quiet down, but it was easily 70%. Like, I mean, I told you, these owners acting like they didn't know what was going on or whatever. It was.
They're at 70% increase in profit for their stadium, so they didn't give a crap.
There was absolutely pressure to take something. And I told you I did creatine because I knew I could get it at GNC.
Yep.
But I had many teammates
this is in the minor leagues.
In the minor leagues, there was a set of. I played with a second baseman by the name of Marcus Giles. Can't prove that he was on it. I know that, and his brother played for Cleveland. He Marcus hit 47 home runs in the minor leagues, got promoted to the bigs, did his thing in the bigs, and then was out of the game within 2 years of the implementation of the testing policy. He never got caught. I can't prove it. But, math is it. Several Giambis.
Yeah.
Well, production changed quite a bit when things started getting tested for. It was an accepted culture. There was pressure from above to do it.
Was there? You think?
I know from experience that there's pressure from above to do it. And like again, before I took creatine, I was 6'5", 230. I took creatine that off season.
Looking like David Justice out there, T-Roy.
No, then when I went to spring training after that.
Well, not now.
No, this is a product of the creatine first. I went to spring training at 270.
Whoa!
I went from benching 275 to 450.
What?
I was military pressing 250.
This is from creatine.
Creatine.
Did the creatine come in a clear gel that you put underneath your tongue?
I got most of it was water weight. When I got to spring training, I lost 15.
Holy Hannah!
But I got so big and so strong in creatine.
What year is this, Holmes?
This was off season of 90. So fall of 97 and then 98. And
damn,
I had wheels before I took it. I was slow after. And I screwed up my shoulder lifting.
Oh, boy.
Back then they didn't have.
Absolutely.
They didn't have.
You had no set schedules. You didn't know lifting cycles.
It wasn't even that. It was we were lifting like you guys.
Yeah.
So like, baseball players lifting like football players.
Well, the people who were training you were probably football players who didn't know crap about baseball because there was no baseball strength coaches then.
Correct.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's my problem with Schilling is he came clean and then backed off it. For whatever his reason, but he backed off it. And
well, I mean, the guys who did come clean with it, and then they got blackballed, but he was too big of a name to get blackballed. They just told him to shut up, or you will get blackballed.
Correct.
Yeah, then, I know of one guy who definitely got blackballed because he named names, and then he didn't name more names, and then they got mad at him, and then the owners got rid of him. It was like, damn, dude, you got screwed.
Yeah, it was messy.
So that was 94 was the strike. That was what drove people crazy. So the whole Androstany and all that, that was 98 though, right? With McGuire and Sosa. Yeah. So you were already getting that per
So
you were getting that crap from above before.
I was told I needed to come back looking like McGuire. Those were the words that were said to me specifically. So I think that happened in '96. The McGuire Sosa chase. 90. So then it was.
Yeah, I mean they were already
I'm
well.
sorry.
They were already well in Androstany, and
It was the fall of '98 going into '99.
there you go.
That's
Then,
what got hurt.
That's when Bonds said, "Holy crap! No one cares about a guy who's hitting 30 for 30."
Right.
No one cares about that. They won 60 home runs, so he just beans up and goes out of his mind. And
yeah, because I retired in April of '99 with the shoulder injury, so it was that offset. You're right.
Again, I go back to it. It's still you still have to put the bat on the ball. You still have to do it.
You do.
I don't care how big and strong you are. You could be, bent like you've bench at 450. You still have to see the pitch, and you got to square it up.
Yep.
That's the hardest thing to do in sports. I still believe that.
At 90 plus.
Or pin a Penn State wrestler.
Yeah, I think being wrestling against Penn State would be a
Lord.
challenging as well. How was that?
Awesome. Yeah. As usual, just amazing. And it's anticlimactic because it's like,
especially when they clinched this so early.
Yeah, they clinched it Friday night, but in essence, they didn't on paper until when Spencer Lee forfeited out. That gave Penn State the points, not because they wrestled each other. They didn't have the amount to get the points, so then they were done. And I'm like, man, they should have announced it last night. And I don't appreciate it. They never really truly announce like that just clinched the national title for Penn State. They don't really announce it at the arena. I mean, honestly, they still have they still had 8 more hours of wrestling there.
Sure.
And this year was very, very weird. And I mean, me and you, we don't like to talk politics and crap like that, but the Orange Man was there, and I was just like, why is he here? And he's a huge Oklahoma guy. The Oklahoma guy was a former Oklahoma State wrestler, the senator there. So he was there. So it was like complete mayhem there on a championship Saturday. And you're like, it's already mayhem already. We don't need this. We don't need the added, that's my opinion. But the whole thing just, Penn State having 7 guys go to the semifinals. I mean, like literally the semifinals, 7 guys. Like that's amazing. And 5 went through. We went 2 and 3, which in years past would be so disappointing. But like the year 2020, the COVID year, not the 2021, excuse me, the year that Iowa won the national title, but we still had 5 guys go, or we had like 4 guys go head to head against them and whoop their ass. It was like they won a national title, but they were like, it seemed like they were upset. So I wonder if Penn State's at all a little bit upset going 2 and 3 in the finals.
Right.
You know what I mean?
so
Still winning
high.
the national title, but the bar is so high because of the year before. There was 5 natties on one team, and that's just insane. That like, when does the bar stop? It's like, geez, that's not you're asking a lot of these guys.
Well, you think about Kale. Like, who's he chasing? Himself,
man.
Like, it's never going to get easier for him.
No, we have this conversation, and that was the last time you were on and talked about like he might go down as like one of the greatest coaches in the history of sports.
He should.
Not just wrestling, not just Penn State.
Right.
Sports in general. I mean, what he does for these kids and how these kids are, like, let them know right up front. Like, hey, you're my guy at this weight, but we're going to be here. And, have I talked to you? And I don't think I have, but could you imagine this? So football and basketball are so regulated. We're talking about the Final Four and the NILs for football and basketball. Yeah. I get it. I understand. But they're the ones that have to – football and basketball need to be monitored because they're the ones that can be and have been exploited for a century. You know what I mean? They're the ones that are big cash cows for universities. So they're if there's going to be impropriety, it's going to happen in those 2 sports.
Right.
Not saying there's impropriety in wrestling, but I'm saying so the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club and the Iowa Hawkeye Wrestling Club and the Buckeye Wrestling Club and all these guys, they literally work out with their college teams. So in essence, Troy, it's just like me coming into practice in 1991, and I'm practicing against Matt Millen, Todd Blackledge, Shane Conlon, like guys, right. DJ Dozier.
Right.
It's like it's that type of thing.
Right.
And it's like these kids go back and like, oh my God, Saquon's here at practice today. Like, Wow.
Yeah.
So you're talking about Penn State Wrestling and Nittany Wrestling Club. You're literally going against David Taylor, Bo Nickel, Colin Schneider.
Yep.
You're getting about not Bo's not in there, but he is a little bit. But Nickel, not Nickel.
Shit, Kale at one point.
And then I'm saying that and then you have Kale. Like you have all these like literally like you got Babe Ruth, DiMaggio, Hank Aaron.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're like murderers row, just sitting there waiting. Like and Kale's like comes out like a caddy master. He's like, hey, who wants this guy? You take him, Davey. You take him. And then I mean, I know how football works. You know how baseball works with a coach. Like, hey, teach him a lesson. You know, get him mad. See where he's going to go like that with today.
Exactly right.
Could you imagine the sheer amount of just star that is in that wrestling room at this point?
Right.
I mean, with Kale, Schneider, Taylor, Nickel. I mean, and then you have all the current guys. I mean, geez.
Yeah, it's
Brooksy, RBY, Starachi. I mean, it's insane the amount of studs that are in that room, and it's like they come in to work every day, and it's like, Kale's like, you know what, I'm going to wrestle. I'm wrestling the heavyweight today. Let's go. Come on, Kirk Lovett. Me and you were going at it today.
Right.
And he can handle himself amongst these guys, and that's just.
And didn't he win a medal as a coach?
Yeah. I mean, just give him the USA program and just say, Kale, take what you want, do what you want, have it. Like, we'll save the money in Colorado, the testing ground. We'll move it to State College.
Might as well. Like, you know the term iron sharpens iron. Like, that's the perfect example of it in his program.
Yeah, like, I mean, you got a guy like Levi Haynes. He's outside of Lancaster kid. He comes to Penn State. He was a huge David Taylor guy. Okay, so he wrestles every day. You're wrestling your freaking hero. It's like, dude, you're going to get better?
Yeah.
Do you think that kid's you think Levi Haynes is going to get better wrestling David Taylor, Bo Nickel, and Zane Rutherford every day and Kale Sanders? I think he's going to improve a little bit, just a little bit.
Do all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no other in college sports, there's no other setup like that.
No, literally no other sport. So it's just like the reason I brought it up, I compare it to you in the minor leagues in spring training, and they still have all the big hitters up there, the big dogs from the Braves. Andrew Jones, Kenny Lofton was your era. I mean, those Braves teams were Chipper Jones. I mean, they were absolutely loaded.
Yeah, and then you
got to tell me how spring training was with those guys. I mean, it had to have been like all inspiring, like wow.
Yeah. So the cool thing was in spring training, early on, they kind of break you up by position until a few weeks in, and then they divide you up in your team. So, I could be doing outfield work with Andrew Jones or anybody else, and I thought that was really cool. And then spring training, like the rosters are kind of loose. So like you might be on a single A team, but somebody got injured at AAA, and you got to go up and play a AAA game, and that happened to me. It was actually my last official bat before I retired. And I got to play in a AAA game, and Dwight Gooden was playing down because the team was gone, and I hit a home run off him.
And you just rode off into the sunset.
I was sitting like I knew the shoulder issue had come back, and I was sitting in the dugout, and I was like, that's the way to end it right there. So we were like only 2 weeks in the spring training, 3 weeks in the spring training, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. And that was that. But like you're exposed to so many people. I remember walking by McGuire one day in the tunnel, and it wasn't like I was playing a major league game, but we were done going to eat, and they were coming in. I passed them in the hall, and I remember thinking, this dude is a mountain. This is my first spring training. Like, this dude is a mountain. And I went back to that game I played in Jacobs Field in college. Right the day or two before we got there, he had hit a ball off the Coke sign.
Oh.
And
when you got there, the first thing you probably did was look at how far that Coke sign was.
I mean, I was muscling balls in BP, and I was nowhere even close to where he was hitting balls.
You were the Joe. You were the cork bat, everything. You had it all working in aluminum.
Yeah. So like you definitely, because you're exposed to him and you're moving around him. Like, to me, I don't miss the game at all. I do miss spring training because of that.
Now you got to hang out with who we talked about, Henry Aaron.
Yes. So a lot of the Braves legends are always around, walking in and out of the minor league fields.
I'm a Phillies fan. There's 7 total Braves all-timers. Okay, that's it.
7 total all-timers?
That's it. Nobody else.
7 all. So we're talking about the pitching staff.
Pretty much, man.
And then,
pretty much the ruination of the 80s for me for Phillies.
No, wait a minute.
I'm just kidding. There's 100.
Dale Murphy.
Ex-Philly. Should be a Hall of Famer.
Bob Horner.
You
had guys floating through like.
Oh, buddy, I get you. I mean, they were loaded, and
they're always terrible, but they always had some studs.
I mean, hell, you want to go back to the TNT days? Here's a 3-2 pitch to Chipper Jones. Here we go. Here, oh yeah.
But you TBS, the station,
absolutely.
But that was why I was a Braves fan when I was little. It's because there was a game on TV every day.
You know my wife likes the Cubs? Because she had WGN on satellite dish. She had country cable.
Up near you.
Think about that.
Yep.
Like, how many people were... I mean, I had WGN in my house in Philadelphia.
Yeah, but the Phillies were on every day anyway.
I had the Phillies on every day. So it's like, if you want to watch a sport and, you have nothing, but you have satellite, there's WGN, the Cubs are on. There's an afternoon game. So
yeah.
So the amount of people that became fans because of TBS and then WGN is enormous.
Especially in the South. Like, I was in Northern Virginia, and we had the Orioles, but...
I don't see the Orioles as a Southern team. I really don't.
But I mean, they're not. But they were 45 minutes from where I grew up, and they were terrible. And so when I got the baseball bug, I was watching the Braves all the time.
Yeah.
And so
Terry
Pendleton.
Terry Pendleton.
Yep. The Pittsburgh fans will remember Sid Bream.
Ooh, Francisco Cabrera.
He's one as well. But to Pittsburgh,
you can't say that name.
Sid Bream is the one that hurts him the most.
Cabrera got the hit.
This is true. But Sid Bream was one of their own, and
he was one of their own.
Could not outrun an elephant.
Yep.
And
he couldn't beat Bill Buckner in a race.
Exactly.
They're both wearing high top black cleats playing baseball.
Yeah.
2 of them.
That was the thing back then. Everybody was rocking high tops.
I remember that.
I could never do it.
Nah.
I don't think they do anymore either, but that was the thing in the late 90s was the high tops.
So when were you drafted, T-Roy? I mean, they were rocking and rolling then.
Yeah, I got drafted in June of 97.
You had to be sitting there like, oh, God, well, I'm part of this great organization, but Jesus, God, I got a lot of work ahead of me.
Yes.
All right.
Well, especially because I was drafted out of college, and their whole operation was geared towards the high school kids.
Yeah. So has that changed? Has that started to change?
For Atlanta or in general?
No, in baseball, because I know hockey's changed too. Hockey's changed a whole bunch when in regards to where they're drafting college kids now. These kids in college are 24, 25 years old now.
I think the biggest change happened with COVID when they eliminated rookie ball and condensed the draft.
Rookie ball is in
as short
season like the Spikes.
Yeah, when they eliminated all of those and shortened the draft.
Yeah, that whole $42 million they were losing every year on all those short season.
Correct. I think that is really where the change happened because they're not like, especially that first draft, they lowballed the high school kids pretty blatantly, and they were drafting college kids, and they didn't have to pay the college kids much because the college, when you're in college, you as a junior you have power, but as a senior you don't. As a senior, they can offer you a pack of bubble gum, and you have to take it. So that's where I saw the biggest change. You remember, like at one point, it might be your first, 2/3 of the draft are going to be high school kids in the first round, and that's not the case anymore.
Is it like hockey where they're leaning towards, hey, you need to go to college hockey, or is it like, hey, come with us, we'll draft you and we'll train you?
Well, that's not
the hit versus like miss in baseball, I think, is enormous.
It is, but what also happened at the same time was the portal opened. So like baseball's a mess right now.
Because of the extra year the NCAA gave, and people don't know what the hell they have.
That and the portal open. So, like, for example, I train baseball players, and the way that I built my business was I would take that B kid and train him up into an A kid, and then they would get their. Usually, most of the kids that I trained would end up mid-major. Occasionally, I get some Power Fives. Well, now that B kid that is trained into an A kid probably has to go to a JUCO or a D2 first, and then transfer it into a D1. Because most, like in basketball, a lot of the D1 baseball programs are now doing their recruiting out of the portal first. So you've got that problem. You've got the extra year, which that'll go away after this year, but you have the extra year. So a lot of kids that would normally be coming through, and the high school kids aren't getting drafted as much. It's condensed everything and made it harder for the younger kids, high school kids, to get to upper level D1 Pro Bowl. So, like, the whole situation.
Will that clean itself up after the COVID years given back, or are teams like stuck in their ways a little bit now?
It'll help, but the portal is the biggest issue.
Our guy's doing a portal annually, multiple times.
Yes.
See, have I told you my theory on it?
Mm-mm.
One time. You got one mistake. You made a mistake. I signed football, baseball, basketball with the wrong school. I made a mistake.
Agreed.
I missed my mom. I missed my girlfriend. I missed my grandmom's cooking. I don't know. I don't care.
Right.
You made a mistake.
Right.
Second time, no. You're
Right.
sitting out a year.
Right.
Okay, you just can't do this on the annual basis. Now, the whole point of the portal was because they were upset that players were getting left behind when coaches would recruit all these guys, have their letter of intent, and then leave, and they were stuck there.
Right.
Now, if your coach leaves, you should be given another year. That's just my personal opinion. But I understand the portal. I believe it's a fantastic thing for quarterbacks.
Well, but remember, there were also sports that didn't have the sit-out rule.
Which ones?
No,
I'm not.
I can't remember. I can't call it off the top of my head, but part of the other argument for it was there were some sports that did not have to sit out if they transferred.
Well, they transferred lower to a lesser level. They didn't have to sit out.
Mm-mm.
If you transferred up or parallel, you had to sit.
No, there were some sports that didn't.
Okay.
They weren't the revenue producers, but I can't specifically recall which one it is, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But that was one of the other reasons why.
No, I mean, we could talk about the transfer portal all day and the NIL all day and all night. I mean, we're having the issue up here. We're having a conversation right now with, Coach Rhodes coming in there. I guess he did get hired over the weekend. So, yes, we're welcoming Coach Rhodes to the Nittany Lions.
And everybody that I know from Northern Virginia said, we got to steal.
Yeah.
So
I got a small little stories. I've actually followed the guy's career a little bit. He coached at Randolph-Macon, you know where that is, and I coached at Hampton City, but that was the biggest small school rivalry in the South is what they called that. So those teams didn't like each other, but I always used to see, man, he's a freaking Mahanoy City guy up there coaching in Randolph-Macon. And then I sort of followed his career a little bit, going to VCU with Shaka, and then leaving to get his head coaching experience at Rice.
Right.
Now, me, you, and BA, by the way, Troy's brother is Brian Allen, BA. So just so you hear us talking in code.
Any of you that know him,
yeah. So T-Roy and I and Brian have been talking like, I'd have loved to have Fish here.
Yeah.
Everybody would have been happy with Fisher being here. But I don't think that was the splash hire that Pat wanted or the university wanted because he has no head coaching experience.
Right.
I think that by him, thank God he got the Temple job. But my God, does he have a lot of work ahead of him.
He does. And first of all, he deserved the opportunity.
Here and there, yes.
He did. And I'm glad he finally got a shot at Temple.
But I think that's his head experience. Now he can go anywhere, I think.
I agree.
And not be having though he hasn't been a head coach, he has that stigma.
Especially if he turns him around.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it is a mess.
And what is he? You have known him for how long? And he is an incredible recruiter. He
is a players type coach as well. Obviously, players endorsed him.
Yeah.
Good X and those guys trained under Larinaga. Pat,
Jay Wright.
Jay Wright. Yeah. So like his coaching,
His pedigree is unbelievable.
yes, it is.
And he's going to have that head experience like Rhodes got down at Rice.
Yep.
And then Shaka goes to Texas, and then bang, bang, boom, the door is wide open for Rhodes to go and take VCU over.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
been 6 years, been to 4 NCAA playoff tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Love the fact. I lived down in Richmond, so I sort of understood and knew the VCU type of people and type of crowd and
Yep.
the way their fans are. And he doesn't. He has his hands full here. I mean,
He sure does.
the reason I'm bringing it up is because of the transfer portal, and we have 2 scholarship guys on the roster right now.
Right.
And people are freaking out. I'm like, why are you freaking out?
Nah.
These kids are realizing that, okay, maybe I don't fit this guy's system. I mean, that is the thing. James Franklin has a system. Urban Meyer has a system.
Yep.
Jim Harbaugh has a system. If you don't fit that system, why would you stay?
Right. And so, but some of those kids are going to come back.
I believe so, yes.
But you make that declaration to keep your options open. But I promise you, so he's a defensive guy. And Crispin is the offensive guy.
This is what your brother was saying, and I looked into it. I read Rhodes' comments. I'm like, dude, this is great.
Yeah, the offensive system.
He wants up-tempo offense,
Yes.
but a strict defense. And I'm like, dude, this is like the perfect guy.
Yeah, the brand of basketball that is coming to Penn State is going to be awesome to watch. And so as a player, when I was going through the recruiting process with basketball in high school, Paul Westhead was at George Mason. Now, I didn't want to go to George Mason because it was, 10 minutes from home.
Run and gun, Paul Westhead?
Yeah.
Nice.
He was at George Mason then. And I was like, man, if he was anywhere else, I would be dying to get into his program. Because, I had some AAU teammates that went there and played for him, and all they did was run and shoot. You got to get the ball up in 6 seconds or less.
Boom.
And that's the offense that Joe runs. And so if you're a player, anybody that can shoot is going to want to play in this program.
Crispin can shoot, man.
Yes.
He'd put it up from anywhere.
He could. And that's the offense he runs. So I'm excited.
So, Rhodes is tough defense, by the way.
Yep.
And then you have an offense. He wants to be aggressive on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And if he hands the reins down to Joe and says, hey, you got the offense, I'm worried about the defense, dude.
And that's the way it's going to go.
This is hard. This is like ridiculously exciting.
Yeah, it is. And everybody's going to understand with the portal, it's just 6 time. You're not going to know what your roster is until, last minute.
I keep on laughing when you say the portal because I got to tell you the story.
Shoot.
You know me. I push the envelope a little bit, scam wise,
Sure.
Now you can't tell me that in 1993 or 4, me, Marco, Eric Clare, Todd Atkins says, "Hey Joe, we're in the transfer portal. We're going to go visit Miami this weekend."
Right.
And go down and get an official visit to that in the South Beach. Not any caring. I'm knowing we're going to stay at Penn State, but you get a free weekend, a recruiting trip when you're 21.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. It's being abused. Somewhere it's being abused.
Now, I have asked our players about that. I say, because that's my issue. I said, where the hell do these guys eat if they're not on your team anymore? See, I think that football is a little bit different because we do have our coach and our setup is already in there.
Right.
And if you do enter the portal, you're not coming back.
No.
In football, when you enter, you're gone.
Right.
See, basketball, you have a new coach coming in. You don't feel comfortable. You want to explore all your options, so you have to put your name in there and let them contact you. I get it. So I asked our football players, what happens with these guys? Because they're still on scholarship. They're still in school here.
Yeah.
Like, where do they eat? And they go, not with us. And I said, good. They get their points. They can go elsewhere, but they ain't coming into our cafeteria. And I said, freak yeah. I'm happy with that. Very happy when I heard
you're
that.
not committed.
You're with us or against us.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
For sure.
In or out. But yeah, I do have a recruiting trip to USC next weekend. We're all going out there. We leave Thursday night. We're getting the red eye. We're coming in, bringing a jet in, picking us up, and going out there and party with the boys, and then we'll be back.
Yeah, I still think we're going to keep fingers crossed. I think we're going to keep Kerry.
Yeah,
Kerry Booth.
Yeah, that'd be great because Chris played with him.
Yeah.
Calvin is a great, successful Penn State story.
Yep.
The Booth pick is what we used to call him, by the way.
Yep.
I knew him when he was just a young man, and he was about as thin as a toothpick. So
blow him and move him.
great shot blocker. He did what he had to do out there playing the game.
He sure did.
But Chris that was his, they were boys.
Yep.
So I thought that Carey would probably go as Shrewsbury, but I wonder if, getting Crispin and back into the fold and in the mold would keep him come back to Penn State. And I hope he does. I really do.
Me too. Because he's a stretch 4.
Yep.
So that's perfect for the system.
And there's a couple guys. There's a 7'1" guy possibly, and Rhodes had at VCU. He's coming out, and a 6'10" guy that are in the portal.
And potentially the A-10 player
of the year. And the Atlanta 10 player of the year.
Yeah, we're going to be fine.
I mean, you and I are both good friends of Keith Ergo, and Ergo won the coach of the year there. He had 25 wins, and he made the tournament.
Yep.
Rhodes has got to look at that and say, what the hell?
Yeah.
Why am I wasting time? Not wasting time, but
yeah.
We got a team making 25 wins in Fordham and don't make the tournament as in that large. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, that's so hard.
Not even the NIT either.
That's so hard for me to understand. But I know for us, we hit the lottery. It was a great pick. And for Pat, I think it was a home run hire. And that's not his first hire, is it?
No, he did the field hockey. But that was, I don't know if that was from within or not.
That was from within.
Yeah. But it was the first national search I believe he's had.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you an honest question: the wrestling versus the basketball thing. With Pat not going to the Sweet 16 game because Penn State was at the Wrestling Nationals winning a national title.
I would think your AD is always going to go to the natty.
To the national title, right? Now people are like, they had already wrapped it up. And it's like, yeah, but it was his first one at Penn State.
No. If there's a national championship on the line, he's required to be there, in my opinion. He's required to be there until the trophy's raised.
Absolutely.
And
just sucked that it was the same exact time.
Yeah, if it works that he can fly back and forth, I'm sure he would have done that. But anybody complaining about him not being,
which he did first game.
Yes. Anybody complaining that he wasn't at the Sweet 16 versus the national championship, I think is ridiculous.
Now you know as well as I do. I mean, you've heard me talk about Pat and saying he is truly one of us.
Sure.
He is an absolute. He is in. You can tell by the way he went after this hire. Mm-hmm. I loved how he wasn't. People were complaining because he wasn't out front with a lot of stuff either.
I love that.
And I was like, dude, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I loved it.
Now people were like, oh, he should have said something about Shrewsbury and this and that. It's like, dude,
he's gone.
Shrew was gone no matter what. You could have said $6 million a year.
Yeah,
the man is from South Bend, Indiana.
That's the thing I feel like people keep missing is the pull of home.
Absolutely.
Like every athlete that gets the opportunity to play in his hometown, how emotional do they get about it?
I said it to Ironhead 2 weeks ago. Bear Bryant gets hired by Alabama from Texas A&M. Just won a national title. What's he say? Boys, I just got the call home.
Yeah.
Mama called. I got to go home.
Yeah.
And that is what Shrew got from Indiana.
Yeah.
From Notre Dame. I mean, it's Notre Dame. This is a guy like, they eat, live, sleep basketball in the state of Indiana.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, I have another question, by the way. Tobacco Road. Because somebody asked me last night about, like, they were in North Carolina for the Duke-Carolina game, and I was like, oh, you just don't get it. I mean, is that still basketball country, or is that getting crept in with football?
No. Tobacco Road is always good.
The state of North Carolina, though.
If I'm being perfectly honest,
please.
I think it's a baseball state.
I can see that too. Bucky Greeley's kid. Bucky Greeley told me, he goes, I would have never put a freaking football helmet on if I had this weather growing up. Now, that man loved baseball. He loved wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, okay, the schools themselves.
Duke, Carolina, NC State.
Okay, basketball might be their thing, but arguably NC State is consistently better in baseball. Duke, not so much, but they compete. But you have Wake Forest, that is a baseball powerhouse in Carolina. What did they used to be considered? Basketball program.
Ooh, baby.
Coach Walter crushes it every year on the baseball side. You look at their rosters, especially in the one and done era, most of these people aren't from there.
Yeah.
But the kids that are on these baseball rosters, they are from the South.
Now, is Duke, their student body's 90% Northerner? Are they a baseball team like that? Or is it more of the Southern kids?
I think Duke basketball is kind of spread out.
Well, yeah, Duke basketball's national. They got Alaska, for God's sakes.
Duke baseball is kind of, it's regional.
Okay.
But they're not consistently in the top of the ACC, so they're not going to get the top kids, the Wake Forest, the Florida States, the Miamis, Clemson. They're going to get the top kids, and that are
in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Raleigh.
Yeah. So, but on the surface, I would say, yeah, they think they're all baseball or basketball schools, but then if you go look at the baseball programs, they're probably better than their football teams.
Every town's got a minor league team in there too, right?
Basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've seen Bull Durham.
What's that?
I've seen Bull Durham.
I actually got to coach in that park 2 summers ago. It's amazing how small it is compared to the feel they gave you in the movie. It's a tiny.
Did you hit the bull?
Bull is now in the new Durham Park. It's not. But the dugout, probably only 4 of us, me and yous, could fit in the dugout.
So 8 normal, 4 me and Troy's.
Okay, but in the movie,
yeah, they're all.
It looked like a huge dugout. It's no bigger than this, and the stands are tiny.
That was in Durham, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, so Annie Savoy's house is like 2 blocks from the stadium, and it's super expensive. But that's probably my favorite movie in general.
Should be
is Bull Durham. So getting to see the house and then, actually coaching in the park and then thinking about how small and tiny it really is compared to the way it looked in the movies, that was pretty wild for me. But
I almost have my wife watching All the Right Moves.
Well, so my question would be, why has she not watched it yet? She's still in the age where it should have been.
She was born in 80. Movie was made in 83.
Okay, but I was born in 75.
But you're a dude, and you love football.
But it was the classic 80s movie, though.
It was the best.
It was a classic 80s. And I probably didn't see it until I was 9, 10, 11, whatever. But
you ever wrestle a day in your life? No, but you probably seen Vision Quest and find it as an absolutely awesome movie.
It was a good movie, but I didn't connect to. I actually did play football when I was younger until I started growing, but I didn't connect to it in the same way that I did All the Right Moves. It was just such a classic movie.
Well, 83, your brother was already through here.
No.
BA graduated, 80 or 77, 76 he got here?
Yes.
BA and Jesse Arnell were roommates in 52. Man.
That is the joke.
Oh, lordy dordy.
Yep.
Love it.
All the Right Moves was that was one of my favorites when I was young.
Yeah, so I almost had her watching it. It was late at night. I had it taped on my DVR. I saw it. And she's like, should I watch this? And I was like, dude, I'll watch it right now. I love that movie. But then I was like, she's like, am I going to like it? I'm like, it's just a meathead movie. It's just there's high school meatheads. She wouldn't understand it, but she's got brothers.
She does.
So she'll understand it, but she's not something she'd want to watch. But as a good wife, she'd probably watch it with me.
Right.
I mean, I watched the freaking Notebook.
Yeah, see, I have my limitations. Nikki's trying to get me to watch Titanic, which I swore I was never going to do.
You got to watch it once.
No, I refuse. I watched the original Little Mermaid for her.
Nah, I never.
It was very different than the Little Mermaid that came out later. It was not a happy fairy tale. And that's it. That's all she gets. I refuse to watch anything sappy.
I mean, hell, she got you to a hockey game.
I've gone to lots of hockey.
I thought you didn't like hockey. You just wanted to go see your team play.
No, her son plays hockey.
I mean, NHL. You went to it. I don't know how the hell you became a San Jose Sharks fan.
No, he is.
Oh, actually, he's out west.
I'm a Caps guy, and I've been to lots of Caps games. Thank you. And I understand that's a challenge for you.
I'll take Ovechkin. Dude, unbelievable.
I put Caps playoff games right up there in energy with Penn State football game. One of the greatest experiences I've ever been to, and I went to probably 5 or 6 playoff games. But no, we went to hockey. We went to see them play San Jose because of her son, who also plays hockey.
Gotcha.
So I can't pretend that hockey's not part of my life right now.
I had a fantastic conversation yesterday, Troy. 2 buddies of mine doing some business together, talking about the Masters.
Yes.
One guy says, my wife's family has tickets. I've gone for the last 20 years. I said, you son of a bitch.
Yes.
You know what his first year was?
Just 97?
Nope. Go back 11 more years. Yes, sir. Jack is back.
1986.
When Jack is back, when Vern Lundquist did it, yes, sir. He's the first one to ever do it. And then the other guy I'm on a conversation with goes, that's unbelievable. The last time I went was 2019 when Tiger won his title. And I said, well, I played the Rose Bowl. I played the Rose Bowl. I went to a Rose Bowl. I mean, yeah. Hey, how are you? Hey, what's going on, guys?
I have a Rose Bowl ring.
I said, yeah. I said I was caddying back in '81, and I carried for a guy named Barry Lipschitz, and he had a hole in one. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you guys got Tiger and Jack. I got Barry Lipschitz's hole in one at the Municipal Park par 3 chip and putt, June.
I just rewatched 2019 maybe 2 weeks ago.
19
still got chills. 2019. Still got chills. It's
I do love this week, man.
Me too. It's my and I'm gonna have to catch it all on tape delay, but the greatest thing ever invented for the Masters was 4K.
Yeah.
Because now you really get to feel, like you're in.
You see the colors. That's what I always say. You see the Masters, spring is here.
Yeah.
And we got the Masters, and a week later we got the spring blue-white game here. It's like, man, I'm in. I'm in.
And people that have been to the Masters that I know have always said that the TV doesn't do it justice with the colors.
Wow.
And so
even now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm excited. Praying that none of the LIV guys win it because that's going to get super awkward. But yeah,
there's no love between those guys and that whole thing, man.
Yeah, and they got to do the champions dinner and.
Well, the other guys, at the LIV are they're out putting green on the 9th hole. That was a great one.
Yeah,
Them with Shooter McGavin.
It's gonna be an interesting week, and then eventually we'll get Charlie Woods in there, and it'll go nuts again. But he's coming too. I can't wait for that. That kid's special.
You think?
Yeah.
Think he's gonna have it like the old man?
The only thing
what the old man has. We've talked about this a million times.
Yeah, the only
just tough as mentally just tough as shit.
That's the only part that I wanted.
You don't yeah.
The game, his game is on point. It's does he hit that whatever that thing is that Tiger has that, his butthole doesn't get tight ever. Whatever that is, if his kid has it, it'll be the same because the game is incredible.
Yeah, you're the one who made me watch that whole
PNC, the Father Challenge.
The final, the father. No. With Tiger and his father and how what the old man was. The documentary. But when he was just like Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley ruined him. Like, how'd they ruin him? Like, they exposed him to the world.
Right.
And it was like, I don't know what should I say to that girl? Michael Jordan says, "You tell him you're Tiger Woods." What else you need to say? I'm Tiger Woods. That's it.
Yeah.
But I admire that humility and that just like innocence to a point. But I mean, man, you got to be able to like let your kid grow up a little bit there, Elder Mister.
Or the breaking up with his longtime girlfriend via letter.
Yeah.
That documentary was eye opening.
Yeah.
I was shocked at how brutal his dad was.
Yeah.
I actually watched another documentary, and you never mentioned it, which shocked me. It was the ESPN 30 for 30 on the Ravens.
I didn't see it yet. I have it DVR'd at home.
Oh,
yeah. That's before my man Goose passed.
6 seconds or less, which was the Paul Westhead one, was my favorite until I watched this Ravens one.
The Bullies of Baltimore. I just saw it on my DVR today. I said, I got to watch that. I forgot about that.
It's unbelievable. Those guys that's my favorite one. You'll love it. That would explain why you never mentioned it, was because you hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah. You're right. I didn't see the Mets one either. I had that one DVR, and I just can't bring myself to watch it. It made me sick to my stomach watching them.
And did you see the one that was about the living Hall of Famers that were Heisman winners that were also in the Hall of Fame by NFL Films? So it came out the Saturday before the Super Bowl. And one of my best friends,
Heisman winners in the Hall of Fame. How many are? There's not that
there's
many.
10, 9 living. And,
it's crazy to think about.
And my buddy Steve produced it. He's won a couple Emmys for NFL. He produces the Hard Knock series too. But he got all the 9 living ones in one room, and or maybe it was 8 living. But it was Staubach.
That are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame that were Heisman winners, and it's a huge thing.
Come with it.
Who? What do I got?
What do you got?
Eddie G's not in the Hall of Fame yet, is he, or is he? So no Eddie.
He would have to be. Or did he just get in?
He may have just gotten in.
I don't think he was in it.
So Staubach would have been the original.
Technically,
60s.
Wasn't Horning doing this?
He's dead now, but I know what you're saying.
He's the dead one.
Okay, he's the one who died, but he is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and his numbers aren't worth Hall of Fame, by the way. But yes, and he was on a losing Notre Dame team. How did that happen? That's called the glare of the Notre Dame helmet right there. So,
not hating at all.
Let me see now.
In his backfield,
Earl Campbell.
Yes,
would be.
That's one.
Barry Sanders.
2.
Not Derek Thomas, but
Starbucks backfield.
Huh? Dorsett.
Dorsett.
Let me think now. Who?
Got another Golden Domer.
Tim Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Got a Michigan guy. An unusual Michigan guy.
Man, Desmond Howard. He didn't go in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he was the first.
A little bit later.
Oh well, Woodson. Jeez.
Yes.
Woodson is in there.
Yep.
Huh. It's interesting. I mean, who else we talking here?
I was trying to think who else was in that room.
Barry Sanders. We said
yep,
was Thurman Thomas. Was he out? No. Did he win a Heisman? No. Okay. He was just after him. So no Alabama guys, because the first one was the running back.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah, there's none of them in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
It was 8.
Got to be some USC guy in there somewhere.
It was 8. One was dead and one was OJ. So he got 8 in there.
Huh. Interesting though. So they have that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Oh yeah. I was thinking about you the other night. I know we're going to wrap up here, but I was thinking about you the other night. I know you want to see how good that Dion is doing. And I watched his thing on the NFL Network. Dion's Day. They had the whole
the spring game, or just the practice.
Yeah, the World Series game. No, the World Series game, and then the playing in the for the Falcons and stuff like that. And his issue with McCarver and stuff like that. I was mad, man.
That was bullshit.
I was totally mad because he still would not admit it.
Yeah,
he still never admitted that he was wrong, and he stood by it and said, "Well, if Tim McCarver has a problem with me, and Tim McCarver's dead."
Yeah,
if he had a problem, he should have said something to me. And Tim McCarver was like, literally, he didn't go on. He didn't talk about it. He would not talk about it. He declined the interview.
Yeah, but
this is why I didn't like him at that time, because it was like it all became about him. And you're like, dude, you're playing a baseball. That's the ultimate, and you're playing football and the ultimate sport. I mean, were you really helping out your Ravens guys or your Braves guys by playing for the Falcons that afternoon?
No, but he admits, if you watch his any of his YouTube his son's YouTube stuff, he admits that it was all marketing. Like he does not deny it was all marketing.
Yeah.
And while I hate that he did that to McCarver, the way that he is leading his men to me is... I
got my eye on him because of you, T-Roy. You know that.
Just give him a shot. I hated him when he was playing. As a coach, I would run through a wall for that dude.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, college football like, for what it's worth, these coaches are going to need to start coaching again, because James Franklin, I'm not calling James out. I told you this last time you were on. Not calling James out. I'm not calling Ryan down. I'm not calling Jim Harbaugh. They're all great recruiters. But now the NIL, everybody can be a great recruiter. Now you better have the right mix of guys, the right team, the right camaraderie, chemistry, and the right coaching staff to make this all happen. Otherwise, it's going to blow up like Texas A&M did last year.
Yeah, I think all these changes that we hate has certainly put a premium on coaching.
I hope it goes back to the best coach's coach. I mean, and that is the thing I have with Dion. Like, hey, man, you can sell all you want, get all the guys that you can, and this and that, but you better, not him, but him and his staff, better be able to X and O people right now, because that's what it's going to come down to, because everybody's going to have the 5 stars.
And on paper, his staff is pretty solid.
It is.
But the thing that I think separates him from others, though, is in today's coaching environment, if you're not connecting with your players and not inspiring them, like, I believe the days of the Sabans are dying.
Yeah,
that's
the authoritarian guy is
not
out.
anymore.
Done.
Yeah, and I think that might be one of the reasons why people are catching him. Why would you put yourself through that if you got a same level coaching wise, but then you got a guy who's not enough authoritarian? Like,
great, buddy.
So, that's where I think coach is heading. But you're right.
I just don't see coaches wearing what the LSU women's basketball coach was wearing on the sideline. I just don't see that. I don't see the sport going that route.
She's a different bird.
All right, T-Roy.
Yes,
appreciate it, Bubba.
Yep.
Thank you, man. We'll see you guys Thursday for the Lion Country Goon Ironhead show, Thursday afternoon, 3 to 4, live at the Lube. We'll talk to you. See you.
See ya.